1.
Sure, it's interesting that a year ago we had announced that JDSU would split into two separate companies. Our optical components became Lumentum, and the rest of our company was renamed, and our name is Viavi Solutions. Via meaning the way forward, and the V at the end having to do with visibility. And so our new company, Viavi Solutions, went onto the stock exchange. We now have a new brand, but it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more about focus. Because we found that over time, people had known us from a lot of different ways, many from the test and measurement side of our business, but they did not realize that over time we also had made a lot of acquisitions in the area of cloud and enterprise and assurance and analytics and all different kinds of parts of the business that allow us an end-to-end approach. And so we really felt that it was an opportunity to really focus as a company on a set of problems that needed to be solved. And in this case, it's all about visibility.
2.
We are in the analytics business, as are many, many people.
Right.
And I think big data, you know, it even has political overtones, right? Big data has good things and bad things.
Exactly.
As we think about big data, there's an element of it that's the word big. It's volume. It's
Right.
There's too much. One of the problems we have with big data is the idea of just overkill. And so having essentially what we would call small data is the goal. The idea of right at the beginning to know which pieces of that data are going to be able to be actionable, how to capture it real time is really crucial. So the problem of big data is actually getting to the small relevant data. The second one has to do with the integration of it. When you think about using big data in networks, analytics, and making problems faster to solve, you've got to mix legacy networks, and you've got to mix networks you don't own. You have to have data that comes from the collection of all the instruments you might have that you're finding as your people are out maintaining the network,
Right.
or finding them as you monitor it.
Okay.
All that information is not always lined up. It's not from the same company. It's sometimes sort of quirky and not good quality.
Yes.
So the idea of how to align that data fast is an area that we're working to solve. And the last one has to do with skills. OSP has a play here, right?
Definitely.
I think that there has never been a topic that's cooler in the industry to be associated with big data. So there's a lot of demand for the people in that industry that know both the business side, the technical side, and the ability to use it productively. Because people can fall into being just a researcher and not really using it to create actionable insights.
Exactly.
And so we feel like the partnership we have with you all at OSP is really, really important to help bring up the acumen of the industry in this area.
3.
Yeah, and you know, it's like every technology wave we ever have, the next one's going to be perfect,
Oh, of
right? Oh
course.
my gosh, no matter which G we're on, we've always got the next one's going to make it all
Right.
easy.
Yeah.
The thing that we're finding with NFV and SDN is you've got more multi-vendor than we've ever had before. So in the past, you might have the physical type of network elements, you have a lot of specific vendors, but when you start to do this in a virtual way,
Right.
you get a lot more players. And when you enable that with the cloud, and some of those you own and some you don't, way more multi-vendor challenges. So multi-vendor interoperability becomes a critical issue when you go forward. The next one, I think the next step is how you manage those networks, right? So how do you plan, how do you assure, how do you monitor? The tool sets that might have been built for the past
Right.
aren't able to be used. So there's a big rework in terms of getting the tool sets in place to do
Okay.
that. And then the last one I'd say is organizational. And it's interesting because your keynote, a lot of the conversations here are about that it used to be, in the olden days, we would have IT and we would have telco, and then they sort of got along organizationally, but they still were a little silos. Now, we actually have to apply IT concepts, IT capabilities inside telco, and there's organizational ways that you solve problems together. There's skill sets of people. There's vocabulary words that have to be used correctly. So I think not one of our customers who are deploying this can have a planning session without bringing people from all parts of the organization. And half of our job at Viavi Solutions is to help them talk to each other. Because a lot of times the planning really has been done in silos, or the understanding is not as complete. So they're all, I think it'll keep us all busy.
Okay.
4,
So cloud is perfect. It solves so many wonderful things. If you watch TV, you know that if you're associated with cloud, then everything will happen in the cloud. In fact, my mother-in-law, who's 80-something years old, will constantly say, well, it went somewhere, where does this go? I think that it has both. There's good and bad. So the good thing is clearly cloud, even operational, even private cloud, is providing us a flexibility we never had.
Sure.
Another thing it's doing is providing for essentially sharing of information. We even have solutions that allow techs in the field to have a cloud-based instrument management that allows the information from each of these instruments to be sent up, and then real time they're in the field getting the best of breed from other people solving those problems. That's a really good collaboration tool. The challenge is, once you deploy cloud, whether you're an enterprise deploying it, whether you're a service provider, you have lost potentially some visibility because there's pieces of that cloud that you don't control. And suddenly, a lot of your problem-solving techniques that you might have used in the past don't work anymore. So the monitoring, the security, the ability to have an ongoing tool set that works better, that gives you the visibility you need, is probably the thing that keeps people up at night a little bit, because at the end of the day, people like to control.
Exactly.
And this is, we've really sort of taken a leap of faith, and it's working, and it's creating tremendous cost advantage and tremendous flexibility, but there's consequences, and we're here to help solve those.
5,
I love the part, OSP is often focused on making sure that the workforce keeps up with the change. And as an industry, we tend to fall in love with technology. So the people side is often understated in terms of the challenges involved. And so we feel that there's a real call to action to empower them with the right tool sets, right? That's our angle on this. The tool sets need to be able to help that person real time. And there are people in the industry who say, we won't need people anymore. It's all going to be self-defined network, self-organizing. It'll all come together, and you won't need as many people involved. You may not need people to do the same things. But at the end of the day, there's still a physical layer in that network. By the way, have you ever seen the damage a squirrel can cause on our wireless network because of the wireline parts of it? The other thing that you're finding, so there'll be work to do on the physical layer. There will also be precise approaches, so that instead of wasting our people's time on solving uncertainty at the site, we can be much more precise in sending them to where they need to be. For instance, we spend time doing geolocation and understanding where problems in the network might be happening. And that helps from a network planning, it helps in capacity planning, it helps knowing where investments need to be made. That same information can be used real time in the field, so that when I deploy a tech, I'm telling them, don't just go this block or this neighborhood, go here. And then when you go here, don't climb that pole. You can solve that from the ground. So ways to help workforce efficiency, so that when they do get their time, they're using their time wisely. Now what that means, I think, is from a skill building point of view, you obviously need to know technology, but I think the tech of the future is going to have a set of skills that are, I would call, the social side, and the mindset of, first, an inquisitive nature of a curiosity about the end-to-end, which means that if we can free up some of their time, they're not so running in, trying to solve the problem and leaving, and having left the question to solve, giving them the tools so they can see end-to-end, and then they can be asking that next question about where that might have come from. The second is this idea of arming them, as I said, with the information they need, but having this collaborative nature. Sometimes we have people who are problem solvers, right? We need problem solvers, but that's not to solve it in isolation. So problem solving and taking the outputs of your lessons and sharing them via the cloud with instruments, for instance, that can allow you to share that, is a different kind of cultural aspect of a person who wants to share what they learn. And the last one I'd say is a communication skill. Because as we empower these people to be more effective in their work. Their ability to connect with other people, to collaborate, requires a skill set in understanding the other person's problem, connecting, understand the end-to-end, and we don't always groom that part of their skills. So we think there's a lot of wonderful opportunities in this industry. People will have we can attract people from all different parts of, whether those are people who are at the end of their careers or beginning, because there's going to be problems to solve, but they are going to have to step up their game.